The book of Ecclesiastes. It's a pretty depressing book, yeah, right? It was fairly depressing. This is a guy, and the reason we like it is, again, this is a guy who struggles. Kohelet is his name. Well, again, there's like the author and then the other author. Oh, this was working so good this morning. Like literally we had it working. Of course it doesn't work now. It's all you, Tom. I do not know why it's not. It was working perfectly. I think it's your heads are in the way. Maybe the heat, the energy off your body is just... Oh, yeah, there we go. It was Tom. It was Tom. That was all Tom. Yeah. Often I think it's just my massive, manly, hairy chest just getting in the way of the... That's gross. That's gross. Yeah. I don't think that my muscles, it's my muscles. Is that the issue? They get in the way? They don't. Kohelet is the guy who wrote this book. And again, he finishes with this idea of like basically all of your lives, everything we do absolutely across the board is meaningless because in the end, rich, poor, animal, human, we all die. And so we talked about how the resurrection literally is the TSN turning point of everything, and that's what brings us meaning. But in these next few chapters in 4 and 5 and 6, he kind of dives into some of these things because he kind of just gave this broad stroke, what is the point of any of this? And this continues. But now he looks kind of like a little bit more into some of the different ways, right? Some of the different things. He looks at work, he looks at friends, he looks at wealth, he looks at even the vows we make to God. He looks at, living a long life. All of these things are pointless, he says. And so right at the beginning of chapter 4 again, he says again, right, after he just finished, I observed all the oppression that takes place under the sun, meaning like on this earth. Tears of the oppressed, no one to comfort them. The oppressors have great power and their victims are helpless. So I concluded that the dead are actually better off than the living, right? Like he's a fun guy in case this is your introduction. And in verse 4, he says, I observe that most people, right, are motivated to success because they envy their neighbors, right? But this too is meaningless, like chasing the wind, right? He's talking about like this idea of basically keeping up with the Joneses. He goes, even people who are successful, he goes, it's just based out of competition anyways. It's jealousy, it's competition, right? Even that, like, the whole keeping up with the Joneses. Does anybody actually have a neighbor named Jones? That would just be, no? Okay. I've never had one, so I may have been lied to my entire life. And so even, again, he's starting off again. He goes on about, the advantages of companionship. From verse 7 all the way down, right? He goes, 2 people are better off than one. They can help each other succeed. Because right before that, he said, if you do all this work and you're wealthy but you're alone, then that's terrible. He says, but like having friends, man, having friends is where it's at. Having friends is good. And I know I spent way too many time looking at dog, cat, best friend photos. It was definitely a rabbit hole, which is weird. And so he kind of goes this, right? Oh, at least, if you can, if you're alone, he's like, what's the point of life? But at least if you can have a friend, like, you can do things together. And then, of course, but even that's meaningless too. Right? Even having friends, he goes, it's better, but it's not great. And then verse 13 of chapter 4, he goes, it's better to be poor, but a wise youth than an old and foolish king who refuses all advice. Such a youth could rise from poverty, succeed. He might even become the king, though he had been in prison. What a great thing, right? You went from being poor and in prison, and now you're the king, right? This would bring meaning to your life. But then everyone rushes to the side of yet another youth who replaces him. Endless crowds stand around him. But then another generation grows up and rejects him. So this too all is meaningless, right? Like, what a great movie that is, where the guy from the poor and he rises to become the champion. And he's like, what a wonderful movie. He goes, useless movie, pathetic movie, but nice story. Right? Again, if this is your first time in Ecclesiastes. He goes, everything's meaningless. So some of these things, right? Things that friendship, kind of meaningless. Political power, rising up, just chasing the wind. Chasing the wind. Then in verse 5, chapter 5, he says, as you enter the house of God, keep your ears open and your mouth shut. It is evil to make mindless offerings to God. Don't make rash promises. Don't be hasty in bringing matters before God. After all, God is in heaven and you are here on earth, so let your words be few. Have you sung that song? Do you remember that song? Right? So let my words be few. It's a nice song. Kind of like, and you'd think this is about respect, like, oh, God is in his temple, and remember who God is, and, no, this is about God is far away, so when you come, don't waste your words. What he's saying is don't really waste your time, because actually, through the past few chapters, God's already set the course of your life, and whether it's crooked or straight, you can't do anything about it, right? And so it's even our vows, because again, this is a very religious thing, and people make a lot of vows and promises. He goes, don't waste your breath. Don't waste your breath. As you come on up, he goes, God is far from you, right? God is in heaven. You are here on earth. What's he saying? He says, he's very far away. In fact, he's so far away. Let your words be few. I think this guy is struggling with his faith. Anybody? Right? Like, we're pretty sure this guy's, and that's why it's interesting to read, because at some points he struggles, at some points he's just outright angry, and he's got all the emotions going, except for joy. He doesn't have too much of that, right? And so he just when you make a promise to God, this is verse 4 of chapter 5, don't delay following through, for God takes no pleasure in fools. Keep all the promises you make to him. It's better to say nothing than to make a promise and not keep it. Don't let your mouth make you sin. Don't defend yourself by telling the temple messenger the promise you made was a mistake. That would make God angry, and he might wipe out everything you have achieved. Right? Talk is cheap, like daydreams and other useful activities. Fear God instead. But not like the Proverbs, fear God in awe. It's like, I think it means like actually fear God. Like God is far away. If you're going to make a promise to God, you better fulfill it. Otherwise, depending on your version, he says it's a pretty grievous thing. God's going to bring you grief. Right? Here it says, NLT, God will make you angry. So it depends on your version. Right? This is all fun stuff. So your vows are no good. Your friendships are no good. If you rise up to be the champion, the king, you rise above your means, doesn't matter. And then he goes to this one. And we don't like this one, right? He says, don't be surprised, verse 8. If you see a poor person being oppressed by the powerful, if justice is being miscarried throughout the land, every official is under orders from higher up. Matters of justice get lost in red tape and bureaucracy. Even the king milks the land for his own profit. For those who love money will never have enough. How meaningless to think that wealth brings true happiness, right? Now that's the exact opposite of basically every culture ever, right? If you could just get a little bit more, if you could be a little wealthier, you will be happier. All of these things. But what he says, whoever loves money goes, you'll never have enough, and so it's chasing the wind. You'll actually never be satisfied. And I've read this enough time, right? I think it's 30% of lottery winners end up bankrupt, right? Like that, most of them end up without friends. And there's a whole documentary about it. I've used that illustration before, and like they're like, I wish I'd never won the money. It actually ruined my life for all sorts of different reasons, right? And I kept saying, Lord, I'm ready to take on that challenge. I will be the right? We have this whole thing where has anyone, maybe not, maybe it's just me, have you ever dreamt, what would I do if I won the lottery? Anybody? You don't have to admit to it. I know you all have, right? Who has spent more than a few moments daydreaming about that, and all of a sudden you're like, what am I doing? Keep driving, right? And it's just one of those things, we do it. It's natural. Go, if I just had a little, life would just be, he says it's all meaningless anyways. Right? How meaningless to think that wealth is going to bring happiness, because we want happiness. The more you have, the more people come to help you spend it. Right? Lord, I'm ready. Bring the people. So what good is wealth except perhaps to watch it slip through your fingers, right? So this thing that we've been taught our whole life to kind of be like, if you could just make money, you'll be happy. He's like, you'll just watch it slip away. Right? He goes, it's a serious problem. Hoarding riches harms the saver. Money put into risky investments that turn sour, everything is lost. You've seen that happen, right? In the end, there's nothing left to pass on to one's children. We all come to the end of our lives as naked and empty-handed as the day we were born. Right? Can't take our riches with us. You've heard this before, right? We all come to the end of our lives, right? I came into this world with nothing, and I take nothing out. Right? Now, it kind of sounds like something you'd put on your wall, a motivational thing, or to be reminding. But it was not this nice motivational poster with a little cat hanging onto a rope or something. Right? It's depressing. He goes, you have no control. God decided when you're going to be born, and God's going to decide when you die, and what are you going to do? What are you going to do in the meantime? Because you can't do anything. The beginning and the end's not up to you, and both ways, you get nothing anyways. So he says this in verse 16, and to this too, it's a very serious problem, right? People leave this world no better off than when they came in. All their hard work for nothing, like working for the wind, right? Working for the wind, probably better than working for ice, but working for the wind, right? No? Somebody? Okay, good. 2 people got that, right? Throughout their lives, they live under a cloud, frustrated, discouraged, and angry. That took a moment. That was a deep cut right there. Right? Again, just a reminder of who he is. Your wealth is meaningless. Your vows are meaningless. Friendships, better than being alone, but still meaningless. Your work, meaningless. Let's go home. Right? And then he says this, right? So right after that, right, you're still working for the wind, you live under this cloud, everything's just terrible. Even so, I have noticed one thing at least that is good. I always like it when he says this, right? These are those carpe diem moments. It is good for people to eat and drink and enjoy their work under the sun during the short life God has given them, right? A little stab in there. And to accept their lot in life. And it's a good thing to receive this wealth from God and the good health to enjoy it, to enjoy your work and accept your lot in life. This is indeed a gift from God. Now, it says gift. Some of yours will say something different. Again, it's not a gift like a happy gift. It's like this is your lot in life. This is what you get. In fact, this is all you get. And depending on your version, I like the NIV version a little better than the NLT in this one. He says, if God gives you, right? If God gives you these things, enjoy it, because not everybody gets it, and you have no idea how long you're going to have it. This is indeed your gift from God. God keeps such people so busy enjoying life that they take no time to brood over the past. It's kind of a weirdly phrased sentence in the original, but the idea is like, even if God, so some of you won't get anything, but if you do get something and you have both time and things to enjoy it, because actually God's also going to keep you so busy with the rest of life that really all these pleasures, even the pleasures that we have to enjoy, he goes, they're just fleeting anyways. They're actually fleeting anyways, and you're so busy and preoccupied with life that all those fleeting pleasures, you won't even remember them. So even what's the point, right? He goes, here's the one good thing I found. If you get the chance, if God allows it, enjoy it. But by the way, they're fleeting and meaningless too. Right? Like you wonder at one point why this guy keeps writing. You're like, we get it, man. Like we get it. We totally get it. But it's right? I don't know if you feel like this though sometimes, right? Like, if you're one of the people who doesn't have it, that's hard. But also you think sometimes life, like, okay, I'm doing okay. I came out of, a terrible situation. I'm in an okay situation. But then actually life just kind of keeps coming, doesn't it? Kind of keeps coming. I remember thinking that when we got married, we had no money, Laura and I, because we just got married and we finished seminary and all these things. You're like, well, in like 10 years we'll have money. And then we discovered you had no money in 10 years. We're like, well, okay, in 10 years from now we'll have money. And you're like, oh, we still don't have money, right? Like, I thought I'd be rich by now. I thought this preaching gig was going to take off. There's still time. I'm young. Yeah, I'm only 31, so I got time, right? So, someone said I was 52 this week. I was like, really? That hurts. That hurts. And then chapter 6, he just keeps going. Again, there's no chapters in this. He's just writing. And it's kind of just a stream of consciousness of how terrible everything. He goes, there's another serious tragedy I've seen under the sun, and it weighs heavily on humanity. Oh yeah? Surprise. God gives some people great wealth and honor and everything they could ever want. But he doesn't give them the chance to enjoy these things. They die and someone else, even a stranger, ends up enjoying their wealth. This is meaning, I like this. It says this meaning, it goes, a sickening tragedy. A sickening tragedy. Even if we work hard, even if we're wise, man, just nothing comes of it. Right? And he kind of continues to go on. He says, rich, poor, it doesn't matter. It's all the same. Wise, dumb, foolish, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. And then verse 10 of chapter 6, everything has already been decided. It was known long ago what each person would be. So there's no use arguing with God about your destiny. The more words you speak, the less they mean. So what good are they? In the few days, your life is short, of our meaningless lives, and it's meaningless. Who knows how our days can be best be spent? Our lives are like shadows. Who can tell what will happen on earth after we're gone? I feel like he should have ended there. Like that would have been a good spot to end. How do you get any lower than that? You have a life. It's short. It's meaningless. We're basically a shadow. He's asking, what is the point? What is the point? And that's a real question. And again, all through Ecclesiastes, the reason it still resonates with us is because this is something that we struggle with, right? Like people go through times like this. I pray and hope that this is not your life, right? But for some people, right, like life just continues to be this struggle. And so I enjoy that we have this book. But again, as we looked at last week, as much as he is like massively depressed and questioning and angry and suspect of what God is doing and why God even allows anything to happen, and all of it's meaningless anyways, in the midst of all of that. Again, we looked at the resurrection. Does the resurrection change anything? And we said, yeah, it actually changes everything. But what about all these things he looked at? Work, friendships, wealth, the vows we make, all of these things, right? Like, but he basically says, life has no guarantees. Life is short. Life is a shadow. So what do we do with that? What do we do with that? Especially what do we do with our work? Because work takes up a good chunk of our lives. Like a pretty solid chunk. Anybody with me? Right? Like, if work is meaningless, you're like, what? I'm not getting up tomorrow, man. Like, talk about your Monday morning blues. We shouldn't read this on Sunday. Maybe like a Friday at the end of the week. Right? So I want to talk about that. What do we do with work? What do we do with wealth? Because I've been told my entire life, if I just had a little more, I'd be happier. Right? Wealth is something, and money makes the world go round, literally. It's how we survive. It's how we do things. We could start a barter economy. Anybody? Probably not going to happen. Not going to happen. So does the resurrection change those things, right? Does it change those things? And I think we got to start back in chapter 5 where he's like, no one's here. God's not here. Save your breath, right? Like, if this is your place that you're coming from, this is the place you start from, where actually God is so far off, even when I talk to him and pray, it's all meaningless. And if that's your starting point, no wonder wealth and work and everything else has no meaning to it. Because the whole basis of your life is actually God is, I don't know if you have any Muslim friends, but when we lived in Alberta, ever tell you I lived in Canmore? Anybody? New people are like, what? Yeah. Yeah. Our neighbor was a Muslim man, and his son was 23 years old. He got his motorcycle license that day. He decided to go to Calgary. He didn't make it 10 minutes down the road, and he died. Right? It was terrible. Right? And I was like, so I saw him in the hall. I just heard the news, and I was like, how are you doing? He goes, well, that's the will of Allah, right? And I was like, whoa, that was stone cold. I was like, don't play poker with this guy. Wow. Right? Because that's how it works. God is literally far off. God makes it, he's this. In Islam, God makes the decisions. God sets your path. You can do nothing about it. And he's far off. You can't complain. You can't cry. You can't ask. You can't do anything. If it's the will of Allah, it's the will of Allah, and that's all you can do. I'd never actually seen that up close, and I was like, whoa, that is stone cold. And he goes, what are you going to do? And I was like, I don't know, throw some stuff. I don't know. Break a wall. I'd be so, like, and this is what this guy goes, God's so far away. What's the point? Why waste your words? In fact, don't waste your words. Don't waste your words. But here's the thing. I think Kohelet didn't know one thing. What is that, right? What was one thing he didn't know? Oh, that's the depressing words. You don't need that. Right? This is what he did not know. What does it say in the Gospel of St. John? It says, hey, you know that word from the beginning, the word which did feel very far away, you know what? It actually became flesh. That very God which seems so far away, which to this author at least, is distant from you so much to the point that why even bother talking to him? That same God, that word became flesh. And what did God do? He actually came and hung out with us. Right? He moved into the neighborhood. Eugene Peterson. He moved into the neighborhood, and he just got to be our friend. He got to know us. And he lived this same life that we lived. That's a big difference. If Kohelet had known that, I think he would have written very little. But God was this distant thing, and then all of a sudden, God moves into the neighborhood. I think that would have changed the way he wrote. And I think that would have blown his mind. I wish he could have come to know that. I wish he could have understood that. I wish he could have met Jesus. But he never in his wildest dreams imagined that God would move into the neighborhood. That God would take on human flesh, that he would become incarnate, because this is not a far-off God. And the writer of Hebrews, right? The writer of Hebrews gets this, right? He says, therefore, since we have a great high priest who ascended into heaven, Jesus, the Son of God, let us hold firmly to the faith we profess. For we do not have a high priest who is unable to empathize with our weakness. But we have one who has been tempted in every way just as we are, yet he did not sin. Let us then approach God's throne of grace with confidence, so that we may receive mercy and find grace to help us in our time of need. Because God, he says, what did he say? He says, because God became incarnate. Because God moved into the neighborhood, because he knows what it's like to be, an Israelite at the time. He knows what it means to be human. What does he get to say? He says, now we get to what? We get to boldly approach. Kohelet is like, don't even waste your time, God's so far away. This author is like, actually, God is so close to us. He goes, we can walk into his throne room. You do not walk into throne rooms. Even in England, you couldn't do that if you tried, right? Even today. Certainly not back then. But he says, this is who God is. God is so close, you can walk in boldly into his throne room and ask him for what you need. If Kohelet understood that, the author understood that, that would have blown his mind. And Jesus, all the way through, in John 14, he talks about, he says, listen, I'm going to go away from you. He's like, oh no, you're going to be so far away from me again. He goes, but don't worry, because I'm going to what? I'm going to send you the Holy Spirit. I'm going to send you the Comforter. And if you think I'm close at 6 feet, if it's COVID, the Holy Spirit's going to be with you. He's actually going to dwell in you. That's how close I'm going to be. And everywhere you go, I'm going to be with you. Jesus incarnate was close, but he says, now I'm going to send someone who will actually literally live in your heart, who will fill up your life. Right? The advocate, the Holy Spirit, who the Father will send in my name, and he's going to teach you all things, he's going to remind you of everything I've ever said, and he's going to bring you this peace, the peace that I give you. This is how close he is. Again, this author is like, God so far, don't waste your time. But because of the resurrection, Jesus is here. And whether the incarnate flesh of God himself, and now his Holy Spirit. So yes, the resurrection changes everything. Right? Because he's not far from us. And the book of Acts says this, right? He says, listen, everyone's looking for God. He goes, yeah, sometimes you got to seek him, and you got to look for him. Yeah, but actually he's not far from anybody. Go hell, it's like he's far from everybody. Don't waste your time. Luke's like, listen, he's close to everybody. You just need to reach out. Just reach out. That's a very different thing. And because he is close, what does that mean then for the rest of the things in which we find meaning? Because now we find meaning in our relationship with God. It's not this fatalistic, distant God. It's a God who is close. And so what does that mean for our work? What does it mean for work? Does our work now change, or is our work still meaningless? Who says meaningless? Throw your hand up, right? Just try and find out who's unhappy at their job, right? Yeah, there's one hand. Why, you don't work. You go to school. Which is totally meaningless, by the way. We have AI now. Don't waste your time. Just kidding, parents. I'm getting emails about that one. Right? So what does that mean for work? What does the resurrection mean for work? What does God's closeness mean for work? Well, it means all things. It means everything, right? Like when Jesus comes to redeem the world, he doesn't just redeem us, he redeems all things. And Paul says this in 1 Corinthians. He says, thank God, he says, he gives victory over sin and death through our Lord Jesus Christ. So my dear brothers and sisters, he says, be strong, be immovable. Always work enthusiastically for the Lord because it's so he says, work enthusiastically for the Lord, for you know that nothing you do for the Lord is ever useless, absurd, meaningless, chasing the wind. This guy is like, everything you do is chasing the wind. Paul's like, everything you do because of the resurrection is now done for God. And all of it has meaning. All of it is useful. Everything that we do, nothing is meaningless anymore. Because again, if this is true, and before Jesus, it's easy to take that view. And sometimes if, we're struggling with depression and just life is really hard, we go, what is the point of all this? But again, the resurrection changes it all. Because not only is our relationship different, but everything that we do, our work. Right? In Genesis 1, we're image bearers of God. To do what? To go into the world and reflect God. Well, we still do that. But we didn't know what God looked like. We didn't know what he's like. But now in Christ, we know what he looks like. We know what he sounds like. We know what he did. And so we get to reflect that. We get to reflect that. And the New Testament writers know that. They continue to talk about that. Matthew 5, what does Jesus say? He goes, you are the salt of the earth. But what's good if it lost its flavor, right? You're the light of the world. You light sit on a hilltop and light this whole place up. No one hides a lamp, right? Put it under a basket. Instead, you put it out in the stand where everybody can see it. In the same way, he says, let your good deeds, let your work, let your life, let your words, let all that you are, let it shine out for all to see. So that what? Because of Christ, because of the resurrection, because of what he did, because of who he is, because of what we have, the promise and the hope, he says, all that you do, let everybody see it. Why? So that everyone will praise your heavenly Father. All the work that we do, it is not meaningless no matter how menial your job may seem. What we do is a reflection, our image-bearing reflection, and now that we know that looks like Jesus, we get to reflect Christ to the world. We reflect him, and we get to point people to Jesus. He said, how does my work? I do X, Y, Z. Okay. But you have coworkers, you have people. The way in which we work, it reflects who Jesus is. All of our work is done for God. Yes, we do it for our bosses. Yes, we do it for our clients. But all that we do, why? Because what we do here now actually echoes in eternity, right? What we build for now. Paul says again in 1 Corinthians 3, he says, because of God's grace to me, he goes, I've laid this foundation like an expert builder. There's others building on it, but whoever is building on this foundation must be very careful. No one can lay any foundation other than the one we already have, which is Jesus Christ. Is what? His death and his resurrection. That's the foundation. But because we have that foundation, anyone who builds on that foundation, you can use a bunch of materials, gold, silver, jewels, wood, hay, or straw. But on Judgment Day, fire will reveal what kind of work each builder has done. And the fire will show if a person's work has any value. If it survives, you get a reward. If it burns up, you're still saved, but you've lost everything you've done. Right? He says your work here, what you do here, if you ever feel like it's meaningless, he says what you're doing here is actually building into eternity. It's building into eternity. Now you say, well, I fixed a guy's plumbing or something, right? I'm not good with my hands. Whatever it is you do, well, how's that building into eternity? Well, you're building into, right? You're building into, it's not the things you do, right? Some things are there's nothing eternal to them, but the way in which we do it, and the spirit in which we do it, and how we reflect God in what we do, in all that we do in our work. Some of it has eternity, right? Jesus says, store up in heaven. How do you store things up in heaven? You can't take the gold with you. You can't take the wealth with you, no. but what you do with what you have. What you do with what you have. How is it worship to God? How does it reflect God? How does it honor God? And we have no idea how our actual physical work, when we work with people, what does that say to people? What does that teach people? Because here's the thing, as we work, one of the greatest things we can do with our work, you say, well, I don't know how my job is going to build into eternity. But at some point, your job is going to pay you. And then when you take that money, you have bills and you have family. But also you get to then take that money, which is the one thing that, a lot of people don't have time, don't have energy, but I do have money. And so I'm going to do something with that. Our work and our wealth is all tied together. And what we do with both of those things are called to reflect who God is, right? Paul says again, he says, teach those who are rich in this world not to be proud, not to trust in their money, which is so unreliable, meaningless, right? That sounds a little bit like Kohelet. Their trust should be in God, who so richly gives all that we need for our enjoyment. But tell them to use their money to do good. They should be rich in good works, generous to those in need, always being ready to share with others. And by doing this, they will store up their treasure as a good foundation for the future. They may experience true life. Right? This is what God calls us to. Right? This is what he calls us to. You go, I don't know how to find meaning in my job. Your meaning gives you means, and those means you then get to use to what did Jesus do? Real quick, what did Jesus do with his time, his energy, his money? He hung out with people. He invited people to dinner. He loved people. He blessed people. He found people who were on the outside and he invited them in. He found people who were oppressed and he lifted them up. So if we want to reflect God in our work and with our wealth, how do we do this? Well, we invite people in and we lift people up. We bless people. What does that look like for you? I don't know. I don't know how much money you have. If you'd like to tell me, please don't tell me. But you have money. You may not have any money. You might have time. You might have energy. Whatever it is that you have, God says you can use that to what? To reflect who I am, to build this kingdom, to build into eternity, to build into things which actually matter. And so what are you going to do with these things? Because our work and our wealth, they go together. And through those things, because of the resurrection, because we have a hope, because we have eternity, what we do matter. All of it matters now. All of it matters. If it didn't, I would continue to tell you, stay home on Sunday morning, eat, drink, and watch cartoons, whatever's on Sunday morning. I don't know. But because we have a hope, because there is a future, we get to take all that we have, and no longer is meaningless, it becomes meaningful. Because we only have X amount of years. He's not wrong in that, right? Like, we only have X amount of time. Our life is fairly short compared to history. But in that time, what do we do? What do we do? Well, the death and resurrection of Jesus gives us, right? It gives us this. It gives us this hope. I don't know why this doesn't work. Go to the next one there, Tom. There isn't another one? No. No, it's not me. Don't worry about it. It was amazing. It was going to blow your mind. Probably the best picture you've ever seen, but now you're just going to have to imagine. I'll act it out for you. Your work, your worth, your wealth, everything that you have, everything that you are, because of the resurrection, it is not meaningless. And I hope you don't struggle with that, but I realize that some people do. And if you don't, as you talk to people in your life, ask them and see, because there are a lot of people who do struggle with this. What is the point of life? This is what he's asking. It's not just about the work and the wealth. He's asking, what is the point of life? What do I do with all of my time and energy and everything that I have? We give it over to God. We use it to reflect him in this world. This is what we do. All life. And again, the last slide was just Revelation. And as Jesus says, I make all things new. Because the resurrection is, I'm making all things new, including our wealth, including our work, including our lives, including the question of what is the point of life. He says, I'm making this all new. And in making everything new, he's making everything purposeful. He's making everything useful. He's making everything wonderful. And we take, we be, everything that we have. Again, we read this and it's very depressing, but it's always that good reminder, what is the point of this life? How am I using my wealth? How am I using my work? How am I using this short life that I've been given, which is technically a shadow? He's not wrong in the history of the world. It's very, right? And that's assuming we even get like a decent human life, lengthwise, I mean. We don't know. And so it's a great reminder to us today, not be depressed as we read it. That's not the goal. But to remind us and say, you know what? We have this hope, and so what are we going to do with that hope? What are we going to do with that hope? What are we going to do with this time? How will we reflect Christ in this world? And not in again, it's never like I don't want to burden you and be like, you need, no, it's a joy. I never want to shame. I never want to put weight upon you. Be like, you're doing a terrible job. You're doing an awesome job. Christians all over the world, for the most part, are doing a wonderful job. It's just that continued reminder as we read this very depressing literature. It's a great reminder that we are not him. There it is. Wasn't that good? I lied to you. It's okay at best. Right? He has made everything new. Your life, your faith, your hope, and everything that you are. So we get to do what? Use it for his kingdom, use it for his glory, and whatever that looks like in your life. I don't know. I'm not going to tell you. But spend some time with God. Ask him, say, how can I use what I have? My house, my car, my wealth, my time, my energy, my relationships, my work, all of these things. How am I going to use this? That's the question. That's the challenge. That's always the challenge of being a Christian. That is always the challenge. I hope it's a fun challenge. I hope it's a good challenge. I hope it brings us joy. I hope it brings us hope. Because as we leave this place, we ask the same question every single week because we take communion every week. Lord, I want to go into this world this week. How are you going to use me this week? As we take the bread and the cup this morning, as we